April 1942. Beneath Hollywood's glitz, a darkness festered. The war brought prosperity and predators. Detective Dan Duke made his living in this chaos. He was a shield for the innocent, a nightmare for the guilty. Dan Duke wasn't large, but he commanded attention. His steely blue eyes had seen the best and worst of humanity. He was fueled by black coffee and cigarettes, haunted by past cases. He cut through the bullshit, getting to the heart of matters. A flawed knight in tarnished armor, fighting for a city on the brink. At his side was Duke, his Doberman Pinscher. More than a pet, Duke was his partner and protector. Found as a stray, the dog mirrored his fierce determination, a deterrent to trouble, a silent enforcer of Duke's will. Beneath the intimidating exterior beat the heart of a loyal companion. The bar's usual cacophony was muted, replaced by tension. Duke, the Doberman, sensed the shift, scanning the room. The bar was a haunt for the city's underbelly, a place for secrets. Duke gestured to his usual booth, a strategic view of the establishment. Mickey, the Fink Finnegan, a small-time informant, approached. Angel Maker? Duke raised an eyebrow. Mickey leaned in, whispering about high-end hits. The thief targeted medieval and Victorian antiques. Duke's mind raced. This was an unusual MO. What was the end game? "And you're sure about this Angel Maker?" Duke asked. Mickey mentioned a fence in the warehouse district. Silas? Silas was a legend, a ghost story in the underworld. Duke tossed a few bills to Mickey, who melted into the shadows. Duke had a bad feeling, but was intrigued by the puzzle. The warehouse district was a desolate landscape. Duke staked out Silas's warehouse for 3 nights. Tonight, a sleek black sedan arrived. Duke watched as a lone figure emerged. This was the Angel Maker. The figure moved with a predatory grace. Duke signaled to his Doberman, ready to hunt. They slipped inside the warehouse, a cavernous space. In the center, a treasure trove of stolen artifacts. The Angel Maker was inside. Gleaming suits of armor stood guard. Duke barked, "Don't move!" The Angel Maker bolted. Duke and his Doberman gave chase. A shot rang out. The Angel Maker stumbled into the street. Duke fired, ending the chase in blood on the cobblestones. The black sedan roared to life. Duke sprinted to his car, a beat-up Ford Model A. The engine roared and Duke took off in pursuit. The rain blurred the cityscape into neon lights. Duke pushed his car to its limits, navigating the labyrinthine streets. Section 2, Concrete Canyons through streets of shadow and light. The chase took them through the heart of downtown Los Angeles, a dizzying blur of Art Deco skyscrapers and neon-lit theaters. Duke, his eyes narrowed against the glare of oncoming headlights, weaved through traffic, the Ford's horn blaring its defiance. The black sedan, its driver a phantom silhouetted against the city lights, maintained its lead, its tail lights glowing red in the distance. They raced past the ornate facade of the $1 Million Theatre, its marquee advertising a Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth picture, a stark contrast to the gritty reality unfolding on the rain-slicked streets below. They roared through the tunnel under Pershing Square, the echo of their engines amplifying the chase's raw energy. Duke, his focus absolute, pushed aside any thoughts of the innocent lives that could be caught in the crossfire. He had a job to do, a score to settle. The Angel Maker's satchel, a Pandora's box of stolen history, was his only objective. A sharp turn onto Spring Street brought them face to face with a streetcar, its bell clanging urgently. Duke, his reflexes honed by years of living on the edge, slammed on the brakes, the Ford skidding precariously close to the streetcar's metal siding. The black sedan, anticipating Duke's move, swerved into oncoming traffic, its horn blaring a challenge into the night. Section 3, a city holding its breath, the chase intensifies. The rain intensified, transforming the streets into raging rivers of asphalt and neon reflections. Duke, his vision obscured by the downpour, relied on instinct and his intimate knowledge of the city's underbelly to guide him. He could feel the presence of the Santa Monica Pier looming ahead, the salty tang of the ocean air, a siren song in the night. He pushed the Ford harder, its engine screaming in protest, the tires struggling to maintain their grip on the slick pavement. The black sedan, its driver a master of controlled chaos, remained tantalizingly close, a phantom menace in Duke's rearview mirror. The chase took them through the garment district, past darkened factories and warehouses, the air thick with the scent of industrial chemicals and damp fabric. They careened down side streets, the Ford's headlights illuminating fleeting glimpses of startled faces peering from behind rain-streaked windows. Duke could sense the desperation in the black sedan's movements now, a recklessness that bordered on suicidal. They were approaching the pier, a dead end of wooden planks and crashing waves. Duke knew this was it. This was where the chase would end, one way or another. Section 4. Dead end at the pier. A showdown looms. The roar of the ocean waves crashing against the pilings grew louder as Duke's Ford Model A screeched onto the rain-slicked wooden planks of the Santa Monica Pier. The skeletal silhouette of the Ferris wheel loomed ahead, its lights extinguished, its steel frame swaying ominously in the wind. The black sedan, its tires spitting salt water and splinters of wood, screeched to a halt at the pier's edge, the waves crashing against the pilings just feet away. The driver's door flew open and the hulking figure emerged, a silhouette against the backdrop of the storm-tossed ocean. Duke slammed the Ford to a stop, his hand instinctively reaching for the .44 revolver holstered beneath his trench coat. He stepped out of the car, the rain instantly soaking through his fedora and suit jacket. He could feel the Doberman pressing against his leg, a silent promise of unwavering loyalty and lethal force. The pier lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the rain-slicked wooden planks. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the roar of the ocean and the steady drumming of the rain. The stage was set for a final showdown, a confrontation that would determine the fate of the Angel Maker's stolen treasures and perhaps the lives of those who dared to pursue them. The wind whipped Duke's trench coat around him, the salty spray of the ocean stinging his eyes. He squinted through the downpour, his gaze locked on the hulking figure standing at the edge of the pier. The man's face was obscured by shadow and rain, but Duke could sense his desperation, the raw fear that emanated from him like heat off asphalt. "Nowhere left to run," Duke said, his voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. He kept his .44 trained on the figure, his finger resting lightly on the trigger. Years on the force had taught him to expect the unexpected, especially from men with their backs against the wall. The figure turned slowly, his face now illuminated by a flash of lightning. Duke drew a sharp breath. It wasn't the hardened criminal he'd expected. It was a kid, barely old enough to shave, his eyes wide with panic, his face pale under the streetlights. I didn't hurt anyone," the kid stammered, his voice thin and reedy. He clutched the Angel Maker's satchel tightly to his chest as if it were a lifeline. "He made me do it, the Angel Maker. Said he'd hurt my sister if I didn't." Duke lowered his gun slightly, his gaze softening. He'd seen enough of the world to recognize genuine terror when it stared him in the face. This kid was in over his head, a pawn in a game he didn't understand. But who was pulling the strings? "Tell me about the Angel Maker," Duke said, his voice firm but not unkind. He gestured with his gun hand for the kid to move away from the pier's edge towards the relative safety of the Ford. Duke the Doberman, sensing the shift in Duke's demeanor, relaxed slightly, his gaze still fixed on the teenager, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The kid, his body racked with tremors, shuffled towards Duke, his eyes darting nervously between the detective and the raging ocean behind him. He clutched the satchel as if it contained the secrets of the universe, his grip tightening with every step. He said his name was Anthony, the kid began, his voice barely a whisper. "But I heard some of the others call him Mr. Blackwood. He collected things, old things. Said they had power, magic. What kind of power?" Duke pressed. his mind racing. He'd heard whispers of such things in the darker corners of the city, tales of cursed artifacts and ancient rituals, but he'd always dismissed them as the ramblings of superstitious fools. Now, he wasn't so sure. He wouldn't say, the kid said, shaking his head. Just that they were important, dangerous. He said they belonged to his family, that they were stolen from him. He paused, his eyes widening as if remembering something significant. He said they were connected to the Santa Monica Federal Mafia. Said they'd paid his grandfather a fortune for them back in the 20s, but that the family never forgot what was taken from them. Duke felt a chill run down his spine. The Santa Monica Federal Mafia. He'd heard the rumors, of course. They were a ghost story, a relic of a bygone era when Los Angeles was awash in bootleggers and gangsters. Most considered them nothing more than a faded memory. A cautionary tale told to keep the peace, but Duke knew better. Some fires never truly die. They simply smolder beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to ignite. This Mr. Blackwood, Duke said, his voice tight. Did he say what he planned to do with these artifacts? Why steal them back? The teenager swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. He said he was going to use them to settle an old score, to get revenge. The rain continued to fall, a relentless torrent that mirrored the turmoil churning within Dan Duke. The Santa Monica Pier, usually a beacon of laughter and light, felt cold and oppressive. The joyous squeals of children on the Ferris wheel replaced by the mournful cries of gulls and the relentless roar of the ocean. He had the kid, a scared kid caught in a web spun long before he was born, in the back of his Ford. The satchel, filled with artifacts imbued with a history Duke was only beginning to comprehend, lay on the seat beside him. But the angel maker, the enigmatic Mr. Blackwood, had slipped away like a phantom, vanishing into the labyrinthine city. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, their red and blue lights painting the rain-streaked streets in an eerie glow. Duke watched as the first police car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the gloom. He knew the drill, the endless questions, the skeptical looks from cops who saw the world in black and white, who couldn't comprehend the shades of grey that painted his reality. He'd tell them a version of the truth, enough to satisfy their curiosity, to maintain his precarious position within the city's delicate ecosystem of power and corruption. He glanced back at the Ford, at the outline of the teenager huddled in the back seat, clutching a worn comic book Duke kept for such occasions. The kid was safe, for now, but the shadows of the past had a way of stretching across generations, of ensnaring the innocent in their tangled web. Duke knew he couldn't protect the boy forever, but he could buy him some time, a chance to escape the fate that seemed preordained. As the rain continued to fall, washing away the bloodstains on the pier, Duke couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The angel maker, driven by a thirst for revenge and fueled by the echoes of a forgotten history, was still out there, his vendetta far from over. The Santa Monica Federal Mafia, thought to be nothing more than a ghost story, was stirring in its grave, its tendrils reaching out from the shadows. And Dan Duke, a knight-errant in a city teetering on the edge of chaos, found himself standing at the crossroads, the weight of history heavy on his shoulders, the fate of a city hanging in the balance.